I'm very pleased to have with us Ken Blackwell, Senior Fellow at the Family Research Council, member of the NRA's Board of Directors. Ken, how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing just fine, brother. How you doing?
I'm good. Happy May Day to you.
Same to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always kind of weird celebrating, you know, a day in which the communists have basically, you know, this is their 4th of July around the world. This is the international, you know, socialists' big day, May the 1st. And, you know, as you point out, there's a reason why socialists and others are always talking about progress and looking forward, perhaps because they don't want you looking at the wreckage that they've left behind.
Absolutely. And we find ourselves right now in a classic struggle between two worldviews. And as the socialists sort of celebrate their philosophy, their forward-looking approach to disaster, I'm reminded of what Churchill once said about socialism. He said, "Socialism is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. Its inherent virtue is the sharing of misery." And that's exactly what President Obama is trying to engage us in, the sharing of misery, as he is on the forward march towards a big welfare state, a nanny state, and the conversion of our free market economy into one that is a government-centered economy.
You know, and it's interesting. I mean, the president obviously and his campaign team couldn't go with hope and change for round 2 because I think Americans have kind of soured on that idea. So instead, it's forward. This is the new slogan. Forward. That's it, Ken.
And they don't think that some of us have a sense of history, a grasp of the worldwide socialist movement and its history.
A la the Great Leap Forward? Are you going there, Mr. Blackwell?
I'm telling you that these guys, you know, are shameful in their whole approach because they think that we're stupid.
Well, yes. I mean, that's baked into the cake, Ken. This is why they need to tell us how to live our lives, because we're so stupid. You know, this is why Mayor Bloomberg needs to tell us what our diet should be, because otherwise we're too stupid to figure it out. This is why we have to have firearm storage laws, because otherwise we're too stupid to figure it out. This is why we have to have, you know, a 1 gun a month limits, because otherwise, Ken, you know, you and I would just be at the gun store every day blowing all of our cash on firearms, and we don't need that many guns. I mean, it is part of their ideology that people in general are so flawed. And are so stupid and are so consumed by self-interest that we need these wise deciders who can manage our lives and manage our economy and you know, manage our businesses and our families far better than we ever could.
Well, look, since Aristotle's recordings and observations, we've been taken with the conflict between the state and the individual, between individual liberty and the organized power of the state. Look, that's what we're engaged in with Mr. Obama, a struggle over the Constitution. Now, you and I believe that the Constitution doesn't protect us with government, but rather it protects us from government. He believes that the Constitution is malleable, is like silly putty in his hands, and he can change it to mean what he wants us to mean, what he wants it to mean. And right now, you know, the apologists for big government are trying to change the nature and the uniqueness of our democratic republic and our culture. And they're coming down, you know, solidly on the side of big, intrusive government, trampling upon individual liberties. This is an epic fight in which we are engaged, and we must win.
Well, you know, listen, Ken, I think you're absolutely right about that. And you know, this is going to be a year. The NRA's motto is all in. And this is a year, I think, where we're going to need people to be all in. You know, I know at the NRA annual meeting, Wayne talked about if every NRA member it gets 5 people registered to vote, if every NRA member gets 5 people to go to the polls, and if every NRA member signs up 5 more NRA members, we win this election.
Absolutely, and the NRA has been and will forever be in the vanguard of the protectors of the Constitution. At the end of the day, our Constitution is a harness on the power and the intrusiveness of government. The Obama administration sees a galloping, central federal government, and we must use this election to put the harness back on government so that individual liberties can flourish. That's what this is about. This isn't about what our fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers did. This is about what we will do. And there's an old biblical saying in Hebrews 12, verse 1, and you've heard me say this before. We're told that there's a cloud of witnesses watching how we run the race marked out, set out in front of us. It is our turn, our time, as Americans, to, in fact, take a stand for liberty.
Ken, I'm so glad to hear you say this because, especially on the right, we have a proper reverence for those who have come before us. Whether we're talking about the founding generation, whether we're talking about the greatest generation who, fought for these countries, this country's liberties and ideals in World War II. But, the challenges that we face, I think in their own way, as you say, they are just as big. They are just as important. The stakes are just as high as we have seen at other crossroads in American history.
You're absolutely right, Cam. Look, our 236-year history is just, full of pivotal events, whether it's the Civil War, the Great Depression, World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, the aftermath of 9/11, the present economic downturn. But in this year, we're wrestling with a constitutional crisis because those who would want to remake us, those who have no idea of what the driving force is around American exceptionalism, would in fact just trample on the Constitution, and in Obama's case, try to make a government in his own image.
And lest anybody think that you are engaging in hyperbole or exaggeration here, I don't know if you read Jack Balkin's piece. He was at Yale Law School recently talking about his book, Living Originalism, and he described the faculty reaction to the idea that Obamacare, or the individual mandate, could be struck down. And he said, quote, the resistance is to the very notion of any limit qua limit. That's why progressivism always exceeds its own reach. You can't just defend abortion as a constitutional right. You have to defend partial birth abortions. You can't just defend equal rights for women. You have to insist that spousal abuse is a federal hate crime. He says, I don't think many of my friends at Yale actually believe any of these positions, nor can they seriously believe that, but for their extravagant positions, we would hand over the country to Opus Dei, bind our wives' and daughters' feet, allow George Soros or David Koch to buy their very own congressman, or for that matter, toss alien widows and orphans into the streets. The real fear is that the Constitution might pose some limit to progressivism's anything-goes imagination. And Balkin says one could argue that the Constitution was enacted for precisely that purpose. I mean, we are arguing over, and Ken, it's scary that we're arguing over these basic things that should be, self-evident truths, but we are really arguing over whether or not there are any limits to what the federal government can do within our lives.
Oh, absolutely. And we have a president, we have a political team that wants to transform our market economy into a government-controlled economy. They are determined to transform our family-centered society into a government-centered society, and what I've told crowds from the Atlantic to the Pacific, that the president wants to transform our national philosophy founded upon the primacy of the individual and the supremacy of God to one founded on the primacy of the collective good and the supremacy of the central government. His problem is that the Constitution of the United States stands in his way. They erected the Constitution as a wall designed to stop any president from fundamentally transforming our country, and we better get with the program.
Talking with Ken Blackwell from the Family Research Council, member of the NRA's board of directors. And, Ken, I wonder, do you think that over the course of this election we're going to actually start to have some of these big conversations? Like, I know this is supposed to be a bread and butter election year. It's supposed to be about jobs, supposed to be about the economy. I'm sure for a lot of people it is going to be. But, underlying the talk about jobs and economy and, which candidate has the better prescription for, turning things around, are we going to have this deeper conversation about what role the federal government should play in our lives? Are there any areas where the federal government perhaps is not always going to be the best answer?
Well, absolutely. I think so. But it's incumbent upon us to frame the debate. That's why I always start. This struggle didn't start with us. That's why I go back to Aristotle and his recordings. And his sort of underlining the conflict between the state and the individual, that between individual liberty and the organized power of the state. And there are about four wooden-headed ideas that have sort of taken root in the Obama administration. And the first is that the government can run run the economy better than markets and individual decisions. He and his team believe that government workers and bureaucrats can make better decisions for you and your family, me and my family, than we can. There's this notion that that the work ethic is old and outdated. I'm fond of saying that he is rapidly transforming our culture from to one where people who work are not entitled to their money, and people who don't work are.
Right.
And that is the creed of redistributionists, and he's number one. He's the quarterback of that team. So this is a struggle, and it starts with the president's own admission that he has not a clue at what makes us exceptional. What makes us exceptional is that underlying everything that the founders did was that they understood that no government on the face of the earth can give you your human rights. Your human rights are not grants from any government. Mm-hmm. They're gifts from God. So governments can only respect and protect your human rights. When you begin to believe that government gives you your human rights, you make government God. That's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Ken, as always, sir, I'm glad you could be with us on the program, and I hope that we can have you back again here very soon.
Looking forward to it, brother.
All right. Thank you so much. Ken Blackwell.
Constitution.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.